Alright, y'all. Chapter 32 spoilers. Now, in this particular chapter, things got literally 1,000 times worse. In this particular chapter, Sarada completely passes out from Mangekyo Sharingan exhaustion. Kawaki overheats. Oh my days. Mamushi multiplies by 1,000, and Boruto might be currently simping instead of actually trying to defeat Mamushi while he had the chance. But we'll get to that a little bit later. Now, the chapter essentially starts off where it left off in the last chapter. Things start to fall into place when Boruto essentially interrupts Mamushi, arguing with Mamushi, and he basically tells him, hey, I'll take you to where Ada is. Now, I'm pretty sure you guys know this is essentially coming from the last chapter where they realized that there were way too much Mamushi, pretty much all scattered around the Hidden Leaf Village, and now Shikamaru came up with the plan that, hey, the best thing to do is essentially lead them to one location, and then we could pretty much destroy them all in that particular location. So they're basically using Ada as bait, which is a very interesting tactic. One of the things that I thought they could have just lied and said, hey, Ada is in section B, and truthfully she's in section A. They could have led them to like section B or section C and said, hey, she's here, and then just completely try to destroy them all in that particular location. And don't get me wrong, they would have pretty much lost the firepower of Damon, which I'm gonna get into a little bit later. But speaking of Damon, Mamushi on the way to Ada pretty much told Boruto that he essentially knew what Damon's abilities were. Turns out that it didn't necessarily matter because Mamushi at this particular point is just that stupid. It was basically brought to our attention that Mamushi would essentially be dumber the more he multiplied, and of course the original plan was to have the Mamushi multiply between 20 and 30, and currently at this particular point there are over 200, so of course they're going to be significantly dumber than they usually are. While Boruto was on his way leading a couple of Mamushis to Ada, all of the Mamushi clones essentially swarmed Boruto, and then Boruto brought them all to the location of Ada. Now, in this particular scene, here's where we see Damon essentially show off. This right here is, I feel like, a very good vindication for a lot of the Damon fans out there, because it was getting a little bit crazy with all the actual narratives surrounding Damon. People were calling him a fraud, they were calling him the Code 2.0. He actually activated in this particular chapter. Now, he hit the first one so hard he flew back and pretty much knocked out a couple other Mamushis. The second hit, he essentially kicked off like 4 Mamushi clones' heads off. Dude was basically looking like Broly out here. Now, the most interesting part of this particular scene was, of course, seeing exactly how Damon's reflection ability worked. Now, it seems like it really only worked when he was touching someone, and also when they actually had killing intent towards Damon. For example, when they first started to rush Damon, all they really wanted was to actually seal Ada. So of course Damon wasn't necessarily able to reflect any of their intent because they didn't necessarily have any intent on actually killing Damon. However, once Damon started to attack them, then of course they started to aim some killing intent towards Damon. And even though they knew Damon's abilities, it didn't necessarily matter simply because they were just that dumb. You essentially see Damon's abilities work as intended. As soon as he finished with one of the Mamushi clones, he put his hands on his back, and then automatically, instantaneously, multiple Mamushi clones' heads just exploded. One of them burst into flames. Then after that, a couple of Mamushi clones tried to jump over Damon's head and dive right to Ada. Damon intercepts them, of course kills all 4 of them. And then right after that, he jumps towards Ada and then puts his hand on Ada. And then at that particular point, even more Mamushi's heads just completely explode. This right here just shows how broken Damon's abilities are. Inogen during this time was also talking about how the numbers of the Mamushi clones were essentially dwindling faster and faster and faster. It went from over 200 to 50 in less than a minute. Like, my guy took out over 75% of them in less than a minute. Now, of course, it wasn't just Damon. Mitsuki was getting active, Kawaki was getting active, Boruto took out a couple as well. But majority of the Mamushis, they essentially died to the hands of Damon and Damon's abilities alone. Now, here's where things started to go completely downhill. Sarada was essentially ordered by Shikamaru to start her Mangekyo Sharingan ability, and this right here essentially started once the numbers got dwindled down to 50. Now, of course, the numbers were essentially dropping rapidly, so of course, at the time she pretty much activated her jutsu, the numbers were likely lower than 50. However, she said that her limit was 30, and not only that, she also used that ability earlier that day, and she essentially fainted. And not only that, earlier we kind of seen her eyes lose some pigment in her pupils, which is going to be very interesting in a couple seconds. So when she activated this particular time, her pupils were completely white. Now, of course, this right here mimics when Sharingan users essentially lose their sight. And of course, earlier, the last time that she did utilize the Mangekyo Sharingan ability, her vision was a little bit blurry when she was looking at Delta, which is going to be very significant. Now, it seems like she completely loses her sight. Now, of course, we don't necessarily know, because while she was using this ability, she essentially lost all consciousness before she even completed the ability. Now, of course, this right here could have happened for multiple reasons. At this particular point, it seemed like the last few Mamushis, about, let's call it 45 at most, they were essentially all gathered in one area, and I thought this could have been one of the best times to actually attack Mamushi. Hypothetically, if Sarada couldn't do it, you could have had multiple people load up a bunch of huge attacks. Maybe Boruto could use a giant Rasengan, maybe him and Wada could use a tailed beast bomb, maybe Kawaki could have loaded up a huge blast, but turns out Kawaki did actually try to load up a huge blast, and here's where things go all completely downhill for my guy Kawaki. Kawaki ends up overheating and doesn't necessarily seem like he was trying to do anything too crazy. Now, of course, I do understand that when it comes to that actual Karma Seal blast ability, we've always known for that to be like extremely overheating from my Kawaki. One of the first times that we did see him actually utilize it was against Garo, and of course, at that particular point when he had the baby Karma Seal, it was essentially steaming at that particular point. So once he tries to do it here, and again, Mamushi is not that strong. Honestly, I might even say at this particular point, Garo might have been stronger than Mamushi, but Kawaki essentially overheats, and this right here is going to be at the worst time. Mamushi ends up multiplying to over 1,000 clones. So now we're down essentially Sarada, we're down Kawaki, and potentially we're down Boruto because he's at the side of Sarada, aiding her and trying to make sure she's okay. But again, she's completely non-responsive. And now it's over 1,000 Mamushi clones. Ada herself is basically saying that the situation has gotten a bit dire. And at this particular point, it doesn't necessarily seem good for our Z fighters. Now, the big thing for me, I think that Sarada lost her sight a little bit too quickly. Like, let's be honest, she used the Mangekyo Sharingan ability maybe 3 times, possibly 4 if I'm really pushing it, if I really want to think back. We do have to take into account that one, hey, maybe because she's not full Uchiha, she isn't necessarily going to have the stamina as, let's say, a Sasuke or even, let's say, an Itachi. But let's be honest, Sasuke lost his eyesight extremely quick as well compared to my guy Itachi. But then again, Itachi was blind for a long time in Naruto. Now, honestly, I believe that the most realistic reason as to why she probably lost her sight in about 3 or 4 uses is the fact that this ability specifically is probably a lot stronger than the other Mangekyo Sharingan abilities that we've seen in the past. For example, she used it to essentially take out a character who was at the level, maybe above a character like Jigen. And again, Jigen was stronger than everybody that we've essentially came across in part 2 of Naruto Shippuden when the Mangekyo Sharingan was at the most prominence. So it could just be that she was deploying significantly more power than the other Mangekyo Sharingans were actually deploying at that particular time. The biggest disappointment from this particular chapter, even though Sarada passed out, even though Boruto essentially abandoned the mission about 15 seconds into one of the most crucial points of the actual chapter, the biggest disappointment has to be Kawaki. It has to be. I mean, this guy essentially overheats in one of the most trivial battles of all time. Let's be honest, in this particular chapter, we've seen him Wadi in base form take out multiple Mamushi clones. It just seems like he didn't even need to use the Karma Blast to even overheat himself to actually take out a bunch of these Mamushi clones. But it seems like he just did for no reason apparently. This right here is going to be a bad couple months for my guy Kawaki's PR. It's going to be completely down the tank. Damon was a complete winner in this particular chapter. I think in the next chapter, you're going to get to see Damon actually go crazy because, again, 1,000 Mamushi clones, it's gonna be nuts. Now, another thing that I do have to point out about these Mamushi clones, again, they've gotten significantly weaker than what we've seen in the first couple of chapters. Once we see Mamushi actually have a 1v1 with Boruto, this is going to allow for a lot of the side characters to get involved. As I said a little bit earlier, Himawari took out 2 of them in base. And I think that this right here is drawing a lot of criticism from the Boruto fans. But the Mamushi clones are just not that powerful. And again, that was Mamushi when he was essentially around 100, let's say probably even 150. And now they're at 1,000, so they're that much weaker. And I believe that a lot of the other side characters are going to be significantly involved. So let's say Amitsuki probably going to take out multiple. Let's say a character like Chocho, unfortunately, the rest of Team 10, they're going to take out multiple. Himawari as well. We haven't even seen her go into her karma mode. So these are the characters that we should be expecting to activate in the next particular chapter. But again, this chapter right here, I thought it was very, very good. One of the things that we're kind of seeing from the last chapter is that we're getting significantly underwhelmed with the character of Mamushi. Now, Mamushi is still extremely underwhelming in terms of actual one-on-one power and one-on-one strength, but the sheer numbers and the sheer problems that he's causing, you have to respect it. You have to respect this character at this particular point. No one thought that he would essentially be this overwhelming. He's essentially like clawgrams at this point. Like, there's no end to them. And not only that, they also have the ability to multiply. So hypothetically, if we actually do take out 900 of these Mamushis, there's still going to be 100 of them. And not only that, they can multiply back up to even 2,000. Like, it's just insane at this particular point. But let me know what you guys think about this chapter in the comment section down below. It's been your boy Bar B, and we out.
It's a knife.